Te tuatahi nei rā nā te mihi ki tō tātou nei kini a kini tū hei te no nei marungi i tō nā hurewa tapu, o te anō rā ki te kāhui āriki. Ki ōku nei uri o Taranaki maunga, tēnā koutou. Ki ngā uri o te rauhuia, Ngāti tō rangatira e kalama a koutou mā tēnā koutou. Ki ngā iwi, ki ngā hapū, ki ngā whānau, huri no te motu, tēnā koutou. Kā tira ki tō tātou nei piringa, kua whakakao mai i tēnei rā, i runga i te karanga o te kaupapa nei, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Today, you are welcomed here to this national conference, Māori Governance Conference, by mana whenua, by karepa, through a process that we know as a whakatau. This is what we do to settle our manuhiri into a place, into a space. And hopefully, it gives you assurance that as manuhiri, you feel welcome here. It is a part of our tikanga, and I know for certain that if it wasn't done, you would feel unsettled, uncomfortable. Let me be clear, I'm not a tikanga expert, nor do I proclaim to be one, even though the title of my kōrero is Te Kahu o te Raukura, Tikanga Lessons for Modern Situations. But probably like most of you here today, I have experienced enough stares, enough telling offs, enough wooden spoons across my backside to know the do's and the don'ts of how we as Māori are expected to behave and act to each other, and also within our places and spaces. This is a kōrero about tikanga, and in particular, the do's and the don'ts around when an anti-vaccine mandate protest turns up to a town near you. So let's start this kōrero. It was the middle of summer, and all throughout the land, there were a number of people unimpressed with Jacinda's vaccine mandate. They travelled from far and wide, but not the South Island because they couldn't get on the ferry because they didn't have a vaccine pass, to come to Pōneke, to vent their frustrations and occupy Parliament grounds. Then Trevor's house, now Adrian's house. Kia ora. Trevor was not happy with all this occupation stuff, so he called in the police to clear out the riffraff. However, as we all know, this didn't go down too well. A few of my whānau were arrested, probably some of your whānau were arrested. But regardless, they were not deterred and maintained their stand. Frustrated by escalating activities on his lawn, Trevor turned on the sprinklers to drown out the protesting occupiers. In response, the resourceful protesters dug trenches and started the slow process of draining the swamp. In a final-ditch effort, Trevor blasted the occupiers with the YouTube sensation, Baby Shark. Do-do-do-do-do-do, Baby Shark, do-do-do. Sorry, I won't go on. That'll be in your head for the rest of the day. Aroha mai. The occupiers responded in kind, and within days we had a full-blown party on Parliament grounds. But like most parties, the longer they go on, the uglier they typically get. This party was definitely no exception. Things got a bit more serious. Poor behaviour turned into total disrespect. And then ultimately, as we all know, violence. During this period, I was trying to manage our daily response to the latest protest action on the ground, navigate numerous calls from ministers, police, interviews with media, talking with our leaders on the ground, whilst also trying to do my quite busy day job. On top of all of this, I was in the process of getting married. However, because of COVID and the fact that my parents live in Wellington and Joyce's parents live in Auckland, we hadn't actually done the meet the parents thing. So I was navigating a whole bunch of things, from protesters, ministers, media, police, people wanting stuff, whilst trying to ensure the meet the parents thing went well, because we were in the last stages of organising our wedding, And not to mention we were quite a few dollars in by this time, so it really had to work. We were also in the middle of a COVID pandemic, as you guys all know, travelling between what would become a super spreader event at Parliament grounds and Tāmaki Makaurau, where my wife's family lives, or as it was then known, Tāmaki COVID. The pressure from all fronts was on, and I was leading our response to this protest, which was right on our doorstep. At the same time, praying and hoping our parents liked each other and that none of us would get COVID. Anyways, after all of that, my darling said yes, and the wedding was an awesome day. Kia ora. And we didn't get COVID until after the wedding. Yes, we had a super spreader event, all of our own, at our wedding. So back to the protest. Things were heating up on the ground. Numbers were swelling, things were getting hot, and people were being eggs. We were increasingly coming under more and more pressure from our own to make our position clear. Through our media statements, we focused much of our attention on pointing out the poor behaviour, the desecration of our whenua, our moana, and the abuse of our kaumātua, our whānau, and the residents within our city. We were very intentional in our focus. We didn't tell people to go home, primarily because that was the exact message of our Prime Minister and police. And if they weren't going to listen to them, then why would they listen to us? And if we were going to tell them to go home, then we better be able to back that up. Because when they didn't listen, or when they don't listen, your words don't have mana unless you can back that up. As the calls and pressure started to come on, our rangatira, Kura Moia, who I'm sure many of you know, organised a wānanga of our kāhui tūroa. Now they are our tikanga experts, not me. Where we talked through what we needed to do, how we needed to respond. Of course, this was an unprecedented event. There was no instruction book, no manual for how we respond to things like this. But the good thing about COVID is that there has been a series of unprecedented events where we as Māori have had to change our tikanga to meet the requirements, issues and challenges as they arise on a daily basis. At first we thought we'd do something early in the morning. We'd get up to the steps of Parliament and blast out some mōteatea and ruruku through Trevor's speakers and wake them all up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We realised that approach would likely put us in an unsafe position. So we quickly moved to doing something on our marae at Pipitia, which we would live stream to the motu whānui. We knew we could control that environment, and our authority within that space is without question. We decided that the approach we would take, which would be one that reflected our connection and relationship with parihaka and peaceful resistance, which is symbolised through te raukura. The 3 white feathers representing honour, peace and goodwill. We called upon our connections and our relationships with our whānau from Taranaki and the Kingitanga, who joined us via virtual live stream as we collectively laid down te kahu o te raukura. This was done through karakia, ruruku, mōteatea, waiata, and a wero. This was a deeply tikanga and spiritually based approach, a Māori approach. And I think for most Māori who know our culture and know our ways, when they saw what we were doing, they knew the gravity of our actions. Te kahu o te raukura made clear our expectations for how people conducted themselves, and it remained in place until the dispute had ended. The physical placing of the raukura in the marae Āti Awa of Pipitia not only affirmed our position and made clear our position, but it was an intentional and symbolic act. Typically, such an act would be done by a young child. However, in this instance, we thought it necessary and appropriate that it was done by one of our kairako. Whilst we were seeking peaceful resolution, we were absolutely clear that we would not stand idly by to further transgressions of tikanga against our place and our people. I then delivered my speech on the maho of the whare, and within hours I was apparently on TikTok, and the raukura icon we developed for the ceremony was being used throughout social media. People heard our call, people felt our call, people joined with us in our call. My expectation was that our stand would be one of dignity, of humility, and completely on our terms. We did not enter in the boxing ring. We did not enter the national debate, and we did not sign up to any politically driven positions. We brought our knowledge and connection from our past, which informed what we did in that present moment. Our aim was to stop these transgressions of tikanga and make clear that the behaviours and the disrespect that we had endured had no place. We stood united in our call for peace. We stood united in our call for unity. We stood united under the protection of Te Kahua Te Raukura. That is how we did it. And I'm deeply proud of how we held ourselves and ensured that every move that we made had a whakapapa back to who we are, what we stand for, and the responsibilities we hold as mana whenua, as ahika of our place. Finally, a few quick do's and don'ts. If you are going to come to our takiwā for a protest, that's all good. But please know that manaakitanga is hugely important to us. As mana whenua, we are duty-bound to be gracious hosts. As manuhiri, our visitors, you are duty-bound to be responsible guests. That's called goodwill. As you apply your duty to be a responsible guest, please don't smash our iwi offices. What did they do to you? Don't publicly proclaim that you are mana whenua or ahi kā on our tupuna whenua unless you actually are. Don't pour your paru, your teko, your tūtai, your mimi into our stormwater drains for it to only end up in our harbour. Do not enter through the back door of our tupuna whare with your gumboots on, demanding a receipt of purchase and leaving us with some bogus trespass notice. Do not abuse our kaumātua, our tamariki, our whānau. In fact, don't abuse anyone. And finally, don't be an egg and think that you can come over to Whānui or Mata and make yourself comfortable there, because you'll get sorted out. Now the do's. If you do want to bring your take to Parliament grounds, do come through the front door, and we will make arrangements for your welcome to Parliament grounds, to Kaiota. Do ring us up and ask if the marae is available. If it is, we will gladly open the doors. Do respect our whenua, our marae, our moana, and our people. And finally, please clean up after yourselves. These are simple things, and I'm sure we all know. And so if you do all those things, you will feel welcomed, you will feel at ease, you will feel settled in the knowledge that you are honouring us, your host, by being a responsible guest, just like all of you here today. Anō reira, e aku uti, e aku rai, te mārea kua tatu mai I tēnei rā, tēnā koutou, hui hui hui, nō tātou katoa. Kia ora.